Hi, it's Ronick from Ask.Audio. I'm here with Tats from Korg. Hi.
Hi.
How you doing? Having a good NAMM show?
Yeah, absolutely. Exciting release.
Indeed. So we're looking at the Korg Minilogue, which has been kind of known about now for a little bit of time, a little bit longer than perhaps planned, but all in a good way, because now that we've actually seeing it and feeling it and hearing it, we're really, really impressed. So you actually are behind designing this analog synth.
That's correct, yeah.
Cool. Can you tell us a little bit about the concept behind it? What brought you to actually designing it in this way?
Well, because we were one of the first manufacturers to, well, one of the bigger manufacturers to go back into analog. That was about 6 or 7 years ago, which was all started with the very humble Monotron, which was $50, fit on the palm of your hand, and then we did the Volcas, and then we did the MS-20 Mini, the Odyssey, and so it's always been very kind of tightly intertwined with the history of synthesizers. We were borrowing parts of the circuit, or it was a reissue like the Odyssey, and it was all kind of we were kind of borrowing the power of these great giants.
Looking back to the past, almost.
Which is good, and it's a very important thing that we do that. We don't lose the history behind it, but at the same time, I always wanted to do a synthesizer that was completely new. So for the Minilogue, I threw away all the old schematics and started from a clean slate.
Okay, so that must have been quite a challenge, almost.
Yeah, absolutely, because you had to build a sound that was good, in its own right, rather than having kind of iconic names attached to it. But yeah, I think we've done a really good job with it. I'm very happy with the actual sound design of the synth.
Did you have any particular inspiration then that you drew upon? I mean, of course, you're trying not to look back to the vintage old synths as well. But
okay, I mean, I think the whole idea is to have a synth that's new but also not alien. You see, because if you look at the synthesis here, it's the 2 VCO plus 1 noise generator, 1 low pass filter, 2 EGs, 1 LFO. It's a very kind of standard kind of almost kind of comforting kind of solid synth that's not in its architecture especially new. But we have done things like we've added an oscilloscope on the screen, we've added these 8 voice modes that completely kind of alter the way you use that standard structure of a synth. So, and it's in the design as well. We've done this kind of curved aluminium panel, but at the same time we've kept with using wood. So it's kind of it's not. It was important that we do something new, but at the same time, not something that's completely alien.
That's really cool, because before this NAMM started, I was ruminating about what's going to possibly come out, and I thought, what are Korg going to do, which is going to be a reissue almost. So I'm really glad to see something new in the analog realm. So, in your opinion, what kind of makes this a special hardware synth that the people should consider?
Obviously, the fact that you have access to loads of let me rephrase that. Our re-entry into analog 7 years ago was all about bringing synthesizers back to the people, not just synth nerds and not just people who go into all these like esoteric kind of vintage market people, because synths are just simply wonderful instruments. So, which is why it was important to have a polysynth, because people can naturally play chords and make songs and get creative with it. And it was also important that we keep the price down. So this is $499, 4-voice poly, and it's fully programmable, so you can actually choose sounds rather than making sounds on the spot, which is what you usually have to do with an analog synth. So it was all kind of about the accessibility to great synthesis without having to be a complete nerd about it. Yeah.
Which is good for me, because although I'm a nerdy as well, sometimes you just want to reach for those presets, don't you? Just to start you off, if nothing else.
Absolutely.
So that's really interesting. So, and obviously you've got the oscilloscope screen. I'm still stunned, if I'm quite honest, how you managed to keep the price down to under $500.
Right, because I mean, one of the things about doing a ground-up design is that you can design it so that it uses components that are not so expensive. So, engineering is always about having a set of limitations and finding a solution that's viable, and that's exactly what I did. A lot of the cost reductions are due to efficient manufacturing. So, for example, we have this tuning thing. When you start it up, it takes a few seconds. Probably can't see the screen, but it's got a tuning time when you first power it on. What that's doing, that's kind of calibrating all the internal kind of differences in the components in the analog synth circuitry. But if we didn't have that tuning, it would be a case of adjusting everything in the factory one by one. You have maybe 20 adjustment points in an analog monosynth. If you had 4 voices, you would have 80 settings and adjustments you have to make in the factory by skilled workers. And this is something that we've completely bypassed with the Minilogue. If you look at the board, it's a very clean design. So that was one of the biggest drivers for driving the cost down. Yeah. Okay.
And so, when you were designing this, did you have any thoughts about a particular genre of artists that would be using this, or are you keeping it very open?
We are keeping it really open. I mean, if you just run through the presets, it's just got a completely, a very, very diverse palette of sounds that you can work with. And it was important that the modulation is really strong as well. So the VCO is a completely new design. I think you can hear this. If I just do a simple sawtooth wave and just work on the shape, and this is something you could do because of this new oscillator design. So it was kind of important to have things like the wave shape on all 3 waveforms. We have the cross modulation, we have oscillator sync, we have ring modulation, and all these features just give it that much wider possibility.
It's interesting as well that you talked about accessibility, because when I look at the screen and I see it updating to show the different waveforms, it makes me realize that probably for those that maybe haven't embarked upon the journey of buying or using a hardware synth before, that's a really, really useful, good tool to have, that when you're changing the wave shape, that you can kind of see what effect it's having. So in a way, you're kind of educating people about what the sound's doing.
Yeah, which comes back to the bringing synthesizers back to normal people thing. The scope is good if you just want to kind of just want to get to grips with synthesis. What does a saw wave look like when it's got a filter on it with a bit of resonance? It's simple things like that get people interested in what they're actually doing with the synthesizer. So that educational aspect is really important. But actually, you could just stare at the waveform and zone out to it. It's actually very good to have this kind of visual feedback to sound, and it goes quite well, even if you are a very seasoned synthesist.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing I like about it is that you're kind of like encouraging people not to use a computer-based synth maybe, or a software thing, and you haven't gone with a bigger screen. You've gone with something just enough, I think, but not too much that it dominates the design.
Right. Okay. I mean, it's not about kind of pushing computers out. It's more about kind of working with computers, and hence the size factor as well. We've used we've used Korg's slim key bed, 37 keys, and it just kind of sits there nicely alongside your laptop, and it's kind of getting synthesizers.
It's part of the studio.
Yeah, part of the studio, integrating it with your current setup.
Cool. Okay, so do you see this being mainly a studio piece of equipment, or can you see people using it live too, maybe?
I hope both, definitely. Yeah.
And in terms of outputs, then you mentioned those. So we've got the MIDI in out, and we've got a sync as well.
Yep.
Anything else here? So audio in and output. So
I think it's a standard set of connectivity you have around the back here. You've got the headphone out, you have line out, you have audio in, which gets mixed before the VCF of the 4 voices. You have sync in out, so you can jam with like Volcas and Electribes. You have MIDI in out, obviously, USB MIDI, and that's about it.
Cool. That's really, really good. Thank you so much for taking this time.
My pleasure, thank you.